Welcome back to the latest installment of Battle of the Ballads with Gregory and Joseph Dilcox and myself. We are wrapping up the first half of the 2000s. It sounds weird when you say that because we're going to be having many pieces of 2000s, but the first decade of the 2000s, I guess you could say. And this time around, we operate a bit differently. Yes, we've asked the audience in the past, what the songs of the year were based on our choices. And then, we went year by year and broke it down. But we use technology to our advantage this time around, and we created a survey for folks to fill out. I've yet to actually view the survey. I wanted to wait until I was with you guys. I viewed the survey when I created it, but I haven't looked at the results. I saw that we had 36 responses, but I really wanted to take it in together to see what we had as our results and see if we're going to accept that, or if we're going to go down the list and play a little bit of knockout and see where we end up.
We should, for the next decade, do ranked choice voting, because obviously it'll be more accurate that way.
I guess we have some time to play around with some stuff. So I am going to screen share and pull up our song. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I have I don't know if they do ranked choice on these free survey accounts, but I can always look into that as well. And we can kind of do both.
Everyone's going to have to submit their choices to you.
Yes.
1 through 27, probably more if we have some guests in there. And you'll have to figure it out. You don't do enough.
And
then we'll run it through a gonkulator and it'll just come out.
That's just bringing back PTSD from my thesis.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, always like, comment, and subscribe.
And survey?
Everywhere. Wherever it is.
Well, before we get into the content, Gregory, you have to say it on top.
Drop a homing pigeon memo. So results. It's the first time I've used this site. All right. So we got 33 votes in 6 days. The ones receiving votes. Nas I Can had 1 vote. Hey, Andre 3000 had 9 votes. Ordinary People from John Legend with 2. You'll Think of Me from Keith Urban with 2. Ellen, did you create 2 accounts?
You actually can vote multiple times, is what I found out. So,
I thought it was only 1. Okay.
Good. I voted twice.
How to Save a Life from the Fray, 3. The Mountain Goats, 3. Greg had 3 votes.
Let's pause here, because for that year, 2005, I was debating between Late by Ben Folds and This Year by the Mountain Goats, and settled on This Year by the Mountain Goats.
Indeed.
And I know for a fact all 3 of those votes were for This Year the Mountain Goat. So
because you did that.
One of them was me. Another one was from our media group who said, "Hey, yeah," or the Mountain Goats. So this media group is an offshoot of another group we were in that loved the Mountain Goats. So
Kick Push.
But yeah, way to ruin the Hall of Records is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mess up occasionally. Kick Push from Lupe got 1, which was
that you?
Me. That was me. Gregory from Damian Rice got 1. No One from Alicia Keys was 6. Rainbows in the Dark. Tilly in the Wall got 1. American Boy.
That wasn't me, by the way. So thank you to whoever was the Tilly vote.
Oh, that is interesting. And Photosynthesis from Frank Turner got 2. And to be honest, whoever voted for that, props to you for knowing Frank Turner. That's awesome.
Actually, one of the members of our media group said it was. Hold on,
yeah, so I'll go ahead and read. I have the post pulled up. So the comments we got from our media group, Be Kind, Please Rewind, big ups. Allison Yance, a couple of these are good contenders, but many are rather baffling, with all due respect. But it was a tie between Hey Ya and This Year, which, I think that's fair. I have a couple of thoughts on why that happened as far as the choices.
Now, was there a preface when you put the survey up, like, hey, each of us picked our song of the year for each year, and that's what's on this list?
Yeah. So, because I posted to this group in the 90s as well, before they changed the way Facebook does their polls. It was much better before. But essentially, I just said, we've been going through each of the years, picking our favorite songs. From our choices, pick your favorite, and then comment below. Tell me what you would have picked. Amy Marie Taylor said Photosynthesis is an amazing song, and seeing it live was an experience, with emphasis on the experience there.
Which is exactly what I picked it when I said like seeing it live is just such a thing. So
And then Alice Lee with a glad to see the correct song is winning. And at the time of that post, because when I initially voted, that was not, Hey Ya was not in the lead. Alicia Keys at the time was in the lead, but by the time Alice made her comment, I'm pretty sure it was Hey Ya.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, because her comment was this morning or this afternoon, and I looked at it afterwards, and Hey Ya was leading at that point. So
interesting. So are we okay accepting Hey Ya, or is there some debate to be had?
I mean, accepting it by the fan vote, yeah.
The fans can say what they want. They chime in every year, and we still say what we think. So I don't know why this would be any different, you know?
Well, then let's break it down song by song here. So I'm gonna pull that back up, and we'll go eliminate round. So California, or I Want to Save You.
Do we want to just, because this doesn't have the years on them, because those
we
are
don't
not
need the year because
years.
it's about the decade.
Well, last time we did year by year and eliminated that way.
These are all in order anyway. So the top three there, it's all that year. I just put them in the order that we.
No, that can't be, because 2000s was Linkin Park. My December is what you picked for 2000.
Yeah, you don't have 2000 on here at all.
Oh.
I don't. Oh well.
Stop the steal.
So none of those were voted on. So I guess we can include that. So in 2000, year 2000, Linkin Park, All of Hybrid Theory. Greg had Bright Eyes. I had My December.
My December.
I would take My December out of all of those as well. So Greg's doesn't matter now.
Yeah, I'd have something vague.
Joseph took The Sweetness. Jeff, who joined us that year, had Fat Lip from Sum 41. Gregory with California, and me with Fallen.
Do you want to bring the poll down so they're not just staring at the poll while we're not doing anything with it?
Oh, I thought that they were looking at the current list. That is my apology here. Let me pull up our other list then. Can you see that now?
Yes.
All right. So we have The Sweetness, Fat Lip from Sum 41, California from Rufus, and Fallen from Alicia Keys.
I mean, I'm always going to pick Rufus Wainwright. So
I'd be between The Sweetness and Fallen.
Honestly, though, since like I'd actually pick, I think My December over any of these. So
all right, I would too, actually.
Yeah, same.
All right, My December moves on to 2002. So we have My December up against I Want to Save You from Something Corporate, some Beck, and I Can from Nas. I would choose My December over all of these.
I'd pick the Beck. He should have won the Grammy this year, so I will not rob him of any honors. So I'm sticking with Beck on this one.
All right, yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with My December over these. It's close. I want to go with I Want to Save You by Something Corporate, because it's my favorite of those four, I think, but it's so close. My December.
All right, and we're gonna have Something Corporate on the docket again for Ruthless. Greg with Forrest Whitaker from Forrest Ali, and I have Hey Ya from Andre 3000. This is where My December falls off for me, and I would take Hey Ya, not because I like it more, but because it makes more sense to move on.
I'm personally sticking with My December. I think it's a better song.
Oh, so now it's up to me. That's why I like to speak before you, Joe, so I don't have to make these decisions. I think My December is a better song as well. I think all three of us agree on that. But Hey Ya was unavoidable for years after this and is still like one of those songs that pops up in all kinds of lists. So I'll go with cultural relevance on this and go Hey Ya.
As much as it hurts, I got to go there too. I honestly hate even hearing that song anymore, but here we are. So Hey Ya is up against Common People from William Shatner, which I was introduced to that year, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Pretty Ugly Before from Elliott Smith. Ordinary People from John Legend, and Ellen gave us You'll Think of Me, Keith Urban. And I want to see your vote count, Ellen, because I want to know how many times you voted for him. I'm just kidding. Thank you for joining us that year. Hey Ya moves on for me for this one. Not sure about you, gents.
I'm gonna say Pretty Ugly Before because I mean Elliott Smith. So
I'm gonna go with of the four. I mean, I like Common People the best, but Hey Ya should probably move on over these.
you should just pick Common People, so we had to take all three to the next one.
It's painful. I have somebody texting me now. You better choose Keith Urban.
No.
Texting them back. All right, so Hey Ya moves on to Blankest Year from Not a Surf, How to Save a Life from the Fray, and Late This Year from the Mountain Goats.
No, just this year. Late was a different song, Daniel.
Oh,
we already went over this.
Correct. Because you faked me out at the end. Okay.
I didn't fake you out. I had a long discussion about Late and even read lyrics of the song. So,
and I had many seltzers.
I'm going to go this year because they were trying to get onto SNL in place of Ed Sheeran, but apparently he's back now. And poor Mountain Goats, because I think they've already got a pretty great following. But I think if they'd played on SNL, they would have just absolutely blown up. And screw you, Ed Sheeran.
I'm still going with Hey Ya.
What do we do in a three-way tie?
We take all three of them to the next one.
Yeah, we move them on.
Because for me, of those, How to Save a Life, I got sick of the song pretty quickly, but in the same way, like Hey Ya was everywhere, How to Save a Life was everywhere, and it's another one that's still everywhere. Every procedural, whether it's medical, legal, police, it's in there somewhere.
Thankfully, it hasn't hit the superhero genre,
but it will.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be like a Superman spoof where he like misses catching someone, and then it just closes with How to Save Life as he's flying away.
I feel like it'll be like a Post Malone remix with like Sway Lee in the background doing the chorus. So what are we taking with us?
We're taking all three then.
We're taking Hey Ya this year and How to Save a Life.
Yeah.
All right. Those are up against Cold December Matt Costa, Put Your Records On and Kick Push, and Grey Room from Damian Rice. For me,
sorry.
As much as I hate to say it, Hey Ya would move on for me among all of those as well. Despite being up against two of my favorite songs of all time.
I'm going to go Cold December.
So Cold December over the choices we brought with us?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a Hey Ya, a Cold December, and Joseph, what do you got for us?
I'm going to go Cold December.
Yeah. Right. That's why I didn't go Grey Room, Joe, because I thought you would go Cold December too.
So we have our
people listening to this are going to hate us.
Yeah, we just lost all of our viewers because
Cold December, Cold December, Cold December, Cold December.
So we have our first upset. We have Cold December against
No One. You know it.
No One and Rainbows in the Dark.
It's No One.
It's got to be No One.
I mean, I was going to go No One, but since you both did, I'll stick Tilly on the Wall because it's the best song of that year.
And then we come to No One against If You Only Knew, American Boy, and Runs in the Family.
I mean, it's got to be No One, I think. No One?
Yeah, I'm sticking with No One. Again, If You Only Knew is probably my favorite of those four choices, but yeah, it's hard not to go with Alicia Keys on that one.
Yeah. And then we come up with Into the Nothing from Breaking Benjamin, Knocks You Down from Carrie Hilson, and Photosynthesis from Frank Turner. I still have to go with No One.
I'd like to go with Cold December by Matt Costa.
I would also like to go with Cold December.
To alienate the last person listening.
No, No One.
Yeah, well, and I think No One is probably the right choice. I mean, Hey Ya did get more votes overall, but it did get 6 votes, and both of you had picked it for Song of the Year that year. And it just feels appropriate for what the 2000s was in music. Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, the fact that we were told by Yance that we had some questionable choices fits perfectly with what 2000s was in music and where the three of us were in life while listening to music.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking about when I read that comment. And I kind of, now that I'm covering my face on video, because that makes for good podcasting. And something I kind of alluded to when I responded to Yancey's post or comment there was when you think about it, like for me, again, we started at 84, right? I wasn't born until 89.
Mm-hmm.
So my musical tastes are still developing, a decade later. We're in the 2000s before I'm really like understanding what I like in music. And so it makes sense that our choices looking back in time would be more ubiquitous for people than, our very formative years, right? Like at that point, we went through all of our high school years, right? So like it makes a lot of sense, and I would be really interested to see the next generation kind of do this too.
Oh yeah.
And kind of see what their choices, and like I have a feeling each of those years, if somebody does this 20 years from now, each of those years, you're not going to get something like Bright Eyes in there. I doubt. You're going to see, I think, the very ubiquitous from each of those years, because only the really enduring stuff is what gets passed on as frequently, right? Like unless you have a music head parent, like you're hearing the staying power stuff, you're hearing Alicia Keys, you're hearing Linkin Park, you're hearing Hey Ya Because It Won't Die, but you're not hearing California, Rufus Wainwright, probably, again, unless your parents are a music head.
Well, so it's like Zoe sings Huey Lewis in the News and Colin Hay and Tupac in a matter of a day, so it's like it's definitely exposure, because she's got my music, pumping all the time, where she shouldn't know the song she does. But if you also look at it, like how many times have Greg and I said, like, love this group, love this band, but it's not their best, like each year. And so naturally those songs don't make it to the list.
Well, and even like Joe said, you don't hear Bright Eyes, but like I'd counter, I think First Day of My Life, which is covered by plenty of artists that are going today. It's one of those songs I think is going to be covered forever. It's a soundtrack song. And I don't think you hear California, but you definitely hear Rufus Wainwright, because he's another guy who gets soundtracks. But yeah, it's definitely like an exposure and a personal thing. And I think that's it. Like we build this as the best song from every decade, but it's not. It's our favorite songs. Because if we were to do best song, like in 84, we would have been talking about Thriller, which had come out 2 years before that. In 85, we would have been talking about Thriller, which came out. So we probably would have talked about Thriller until like the early 90s.
Oh, yeah.
So I think.
And I get that. And I think we did, when we started out, we were trying to find best song, right? And it's just, as you get more attached to the music, right? Like, and that's why I mentioned, like, I wasn't even around, and I wasn't really developing my own musical taste for the first, like 15 episodes we did of this. And so as you get more, when you get closer to that music, when you are that close to the music, it's nearly impossible to separate best from favorite, right? Well, and so I think the early episodes we attempted to do that, we just sucked at it.
Well, it's like there's best, there's favorite, and there's most popular. And as we just saw, like Andre 3000 moved on because it's most popular. Was it the best song? No, it wasn't even in the top 20 most creative songs on the list. It was a song that took off, and old grandmas like to dance to it at weddings without knowing what it actually means. So, and it wasn't even the best song on that album yet. So, it's about, the staying power. And to be quite honest, Hey Ya, we played all these parties and stuff like that. But when people hear the vocal from No One from Alicia Keys, that will transcend a lot more than just, these flashy lyrics from Andre 3000. So I think that though it was my song, I chose Kick Push from Lupe because of the personal meaning to me. But when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, we all have songs that mean something to us. That doesn't make them the best song of the year. It just makes it the best song to us. So I actually think the right song did move on, to be honest. And
I also think if we talked like the best or the most popular song, like in the purest form, best is almost impossible to break down anyway.
Yeah.
Especially because we all love music, but we are not music guys. We are not like classically trained in music. We just like listening to music.
Yeah.
So I think the way we're doing it is why people want to watch us, though, because they're getting our honest opinions of music. And a simple thing, you discovering the William Shatner album and enjoying that song, Dan, is kind of why we do this. So that's why we thought about doing the playlist, because, hey, I mean, Kelly would be in the one who was like making her own playlist of these episodes and listening to it, inspired that. And that's why we're here doing it.
And we have 11 more episodes left, plus our year in review, which is timed perfectly if we don't miss a week, to be done in the first week of January. So somehow that just worked out magically.
Dan, when you posted the survey to your wall, did you get any comments from people like stating what their choices would have been for 2000 had they been in our seats?
No, nobody said anything actually. But it wasn't posted by year either. So it was just posted by choice. But I don't know that it would have made a difference because nothing from that year made it to us.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering because like nobody mentioned what they would have, because in my post I was like, hey, tell us down below what you would have picked, and nobody ended up adding that in. And it's interesting because most weeks we get people chiming in with their picks, and maybe since they had already done that, they didn't feel the need to chime in again this week.
I have a feeling the same people that usually respond are the ones who voted outside of that group you posted in and outside of like Twitter where I put it, so their voice had been heard.
Yeah.
And Corey Kesserling had already rioted for us not choosing some of his that he said he'd riot about. So there's no riot punch left for that. But as we move on to 2010, our winner of the 80s was Prince Purple Rain. Our 90s winner was Doo Wop from Lauryn Hill. And so far, our first decade of the 2000s was No One from Alicia Keys. So some powerhouse musicians there, which is great. And I'm curious to see where it goes next. In the next round of surveys, I'll make sure to include every year. Gentlemen, we made it through another decade. And next year we explore the year 2000. My list is already done.
I haven't even thought about it.
I did it because I have some new things in the works that I got to focus on. So I want to make sure I got that in because Gregory and I will also be resuming No Coast Defenders soon here with all this new and exciting stuff. So, yeah, we made it, guys. And to everybody who participated in the survey, regardless of what group you were in, where you found the survey, thank you for partaking. For the viewership, we are at full views on many videos now. Subscribers are up, comments are up. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey that started from a random late night text between Gregory and myself that is now here 20 plus episodes later. And thank you for all the constant support, guys.
And speaking of that 20 plus years or 20 plus episodes later, Dan, I know we had talked about things we'd missed talking about, and I know you had some that you kind of regret missing.
I did. I missed an entire Jimmy Eat World album. I missed a Carey Brothers album. I missed a Shins album. And I would like to, I think when we're done with it all, after our year in review, do the shit we should have said, like the closure of a breakup, where the stuff we never said. Because I think that there's some people kind of scratching their heads at certain things that may have been missed as well.
Yeah, well, and I think as we got into the mid 90s, I quit talking about a lot of stuff I'd mentioned earlier in like the late 80s and 90s that like were worth mentioning, but like didn't hit me in a personal level. So I'd like quit talking about Mariah Carey because after Breakdown featuring Bone Thugs and Harmony, I quit listening to Mariah for the most part. But I mean, also with the nature of the way we're looking these things up and we're in the moment, it's not like we're doing copious amounts of research. We're not doing a thesis on the songs of these years. So it's easy for us to miss things. And I mean, I missed the 2 debut Spoon albums, and I would consider them one of my top favorite bands of all time. And it's just simply the nature of, I'm like remembering in 92, I'm like, oh, I got to remember when we get to the late 90s, I got to remember Spoon started releasing albums. But then when I'm looking at 96, I'm not thinking, oh shit, I need to go see what Texas bands released independent albums that year. So
there's a ton that I missed in the 80s too, like a ton that I missed in the 80s.
Yeah, so I thought it was crazy because like I missed I think it was the first 2 OAR albums. Because I think I did mention it the year after, and that I would have included Heard the World. But for me, because I do the majority of my research based off of the Wikipedia's collection of albums released that year, but they missed some fairly big ones. Like, I don't think of OAR as some unknown indie band, so you would think that that would be on there, but none of the OAR albums before All Sides was on the Wikipedia articles for albums released in a year. And yeah, like Gregory said, it's so hard to keep in mind that, like, oh yeah, when I get to 2001, I want to mention the Sick Puppies debut album. Okay, if it's not on the Wikipedia thing, I'm gonna forget because I'm an idiot. Like, I'm not an encyclopedia of anything, you know.
That's why I've been doing song facts, because at least it's like 500 songs to go through that I do, and then I weed out everything, and then I vet it. So I start usually a week early because I vet it to see if that song actually came out that year, because there are many times where it either came out the year before or after. But no, like, I consider myself to be a big hip hop head. It's been my most preferred genre for years, and I've had friends call me out like, how'd you miss this? And it's because of the mixtape, album release, all that stuff era of the 90s, where I missed many tracks that I would have spoken of notably because they deserve to be there, but I considered it unreleased mixtape as on some DJ underground stuff as opposed to an actual album. So that was a choice I made in terms of how I viewed the songs, and then some of the years they popped up, they just didn't make the list as a result.
I like that you talked about 500 songs on Song Facts, like it was a lot, but you can get 500 albums on Wikipedia for that year and then have to click on the albums. But I think if we were to try and list every great song that we loved in every year, it would be this fruitless, aggravating thing we'd never accomplish. So,
and that's why I went back to limit, like, because when we started, again, going back to the whole, looking back before I was born to pick out songs of relevance was easier. And then when we got into the early, or like the mid to late 90s, and I started having more of an emotional attachment to that music, right? At times my list ballooned to almost 40. And then at that point I had to be like, nope, I'm stepping it back again, because I felt like at that point I was just speed reading a bunch of song names. And we weren't actually getting a chance to discuss music. We were just reading lists, which there's a place for both of those things, but I prefer discussing music over reading lists. So that's why I cut them back down. And like the last few, I think the most I had was 18. And so to that as well, there were things where I just skipped, but
I think keep in mind a one page on my sheet here, and 2010 is no different for me, the one I just finished. And I knew my song of the year before even going into it. I don't even have a top 10, top 5. I just know my song of the year. But so for those just joining in, if that's the case, or who kind of searched by in the forward button, we chose no one for the first half, or for the first 10 years of the 2000s. And next year we move on to 2010. And I'm excited about the journey. And I was wondering if anybody has anything to plug before we wrap this.
Well, I had a question for you guys before we wrapped real quick. Just looking ahead, Dan, you've already done 2010, so maybe not in the year 2010, but what are some things you guys know are coming up that you're looking forward to in the next decade?
Oh, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm looking forward to certain artists not being there anymore. But I'm really looking forward to the I don't want to say the singer-songwriter takeover for a few years, but the true artistry taking over after the dance craze wore off.
Dance craze never wears off.
Nope.
There's difference between the pop dance craze and the DJ dance craze, and I hate that DJ dance craze with a passion.
I don't know. I think for me, it'll be interesting because I mentioned a couple of covers throughout the aughts that I really enjoyed, and I even mentioned specifically in my top for 08 maybe was a Day to Remember's cover of the Fray Cable Car. I'll be interested to see how many additional covers start to pop up, because I think as we start getting into the world of internet fame, there was a lot more there's a lot more cover, almost like a more robust cover community, where like YouTube was established in 2005, late 2000s. It was a lot of ridiculous animations, shit like Charlie the Unicorn, and undiscovered musicians that were trying to get their name out there on YouTube. And a
Then
lot of
Usher
that
found
started,
Justin Bieber.
yeah, and that's absolutely true. And there's a lot of people who got famous and made a living off of doing YouTube music. Boyce Avenue is pretty well known for their covers, right? Halocene, well known for their covers. Like, there's a number of things that were just, they're like, hey, we're making a living doing covers on YouTube. And it was a different way to break into the music scene. And I'm interested to see how much of that actually makes my list, or how much of that doesn't, not necessarily for reasons of it shouldn't be there, and more so that how the hell do you track all that? Like, how do you track every cover song released on YouTube in 2011, you know?
And for what it's worth, Greg, this 2010, as I made my list, I noticed that it was the last year I knew anybody from American Idol. So I will not know anybody after that, because I was looking at the name like, I think that's American Idol. So that's the last year for me.
Yeah. I think I'm really looking forward to, obviously, like, Kesha's coming. Kesha had guest spots in 2008, 2009, but we're getting Kesha here in 2010. We're getting Kesha.
And then my talk. My TED talk.
And then, listen, you can't ruin talking about Kesha. Carly Rae Jepsen, obviously, everyone who's listened to us a couple times knows, like, that's coming up. And anyone who listened to our 90s recap, and when we read our on repeats from Spotify, there's a lot of indie fun punk bands, especially like female fronted, that I'm really excited to talk about in the next decade. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And like Joe said, it's going to be tough, because I think especially Ben Queller said it when I saw him a couple of years ago for the second time. He was talking about, he played a song. It's going to be on my next album. Do people still buy albums, or is it all just singles? And of course, it's a slightly older crowd watching Ben Queller on Valentine's Day. And we all went nuts for it. But at the same time, I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, no, the internet has taken over and it's all singles on Spotify, which is fine. Like, I kind of love the access we have to it, but I'm still very much an album person. So when I see someone release a couple singles in a couple months span, I'm like, maybe we're going to get an album, because there's often a deep cut on that album that's going to be better than the singles. So it'll be interesting to talk about this future, just in what we're dealing with, especially because Joe and I have often gone with albums. But I mean, I saw Ben Queller perform a song 3 years before the album came out, and I know it had been on Spotify that whole time. So how are we going to do some things like that? And there's some songs that we're going to love because of the digital age that never made an album as well. So
yeah,
it'll be curious how we have to change our strategies upcoming.
I found that a little bit, but
I don't even know how I'm going to dig into some of those, right? Like, if it's not associated with an album, or, you know, if it was released 3 years before the album, it's going to be so difficult to keep track. And there's going to be times where I'm scratching my head and be like, I didn't know that song came out this year.
that's why I focus on the song, not the album, because many things are released and then become part of something, especially between the late 90s and now, because that's when, you know, you had your whatever you could buy on iTunes, your singles, like all that stuff. And then you had what was tracking in clubs before it was anything. You had what was tracking in other country before it was here. So that's why I try to focus on the songs of the album, because
that's also where it gets, because I know for myself and Joe too as well, like, we're going to have a lot of artists and songs coming up that aren't going to hit song facts at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to have necessarily the following for song facts. So we're not going to have that to even track anymore. We're just going to have to, when we're really interested in artists, we're going to have to like go through and manually search for when songs came out.
You know what else I've been using is my old iPod because it has the years that songs were labeled as. And I was meticulous about the listings for all of my tracks on my iPod, where I would adjust everything in the library before it actually was on there. So I've been scrolling through there a little bit too to see if I was going to miss anything.
I had a SanDisk MP3 player because screw Apple. So
The SanDisk was much better.
I love the SanDisk. Mine was stolen like out of a bag. So
I still have mine
But
somewhere.
so we settle on Alicia Keys' No One, and we move on to 2010. And,
yeah, interesting that so far it's been 3 R&B tracks.
I like that for us, actually.
It's just an interesting thing, especially if you listen to a lot of the tracks we pick. I feel like maybe if we're lucky, a third of them are R&B.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that that's where we end up falling when it comes to tracks of the decade so far.
I mean, I think it makes sense though, right? Because like when we're doing years, we focus a lot more on what is our favorites. And then when we start doing the year battle royale, it becomes what is the best of these.
Right.
But and we always do kind of, when we start doing that, we start to consider cultural impact or popularity and stuff like that. And so when we spent an entire year picking, you know, I'm trying to find one that has not much. We did okay of getting at least one big thing in each one. Like even when it was William Shatner and Elliott Smith, there was at least a John Legend. So we do a good job of getting like one per year. But like
and also if we're talking music, Elliott Smith himself has just this giant following within music that I think he'll always have. It's why things are re-released so often for him. But no, you're right. Like John Legend was and is a cultural phenomenon. I mean, he's an EGOT winner after all.
Yeah.
We honestly did not give John Legend enough respect probably in this list.
But I think he actually has some things coming up where he will definitely get that respect as well. Now, as we close the year and the session, does anybody have any shout outs that you would like to share?
Nope. Shout out to Halloween for existing.
There we go. Gregory.
Always. Just cool points. Find me on Facebook. Find me on Substack. Dan and I will be coming back with No Coast Defenders as Marvel ramps up again. So look for that. If you haven't listened to No Coast Defenders, find us on Spotify, find us on YouTube, catch up. Dan hated all the Marvel shows, but you'll hear me talk about them well and tell Dan he's crazy.
Dan rewatched the Marvel shows and likes them a little bit better. Check out toyshnip.com, toyshnip.com. It is not just a toys and collectible seller. It is now turning into a multimedia daily blog of all pop culture things. And I will be featured on there every week talking about various pop culture events and the breakdown from the week before and what to expect from the week ahead. Opportunity that came to me that I never expected in a million years, but really enjoy and I'm really appreciative of. So first piece hit this week, and the second piece is being put together to run next Monday. So join me there, tune in. I know I'm on YouTube, other people's channels, other people's stuff, whatever. This is the just little passion project where my brain gets to spill on the paper, and I've never had such an opportunity. So I'm very grateful for it. So tune in, and I'll be sharing the hell out of it on everything. Gregory and Joseph, thank you as always for joining me in this venture. I look forward to reuniting on No Coast. And to everybody who participated in this, thank you. To everybody who continues to tune in every week, thank you. As Joseph often reminds you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. The comments are actually what boosts the page and what boosts the episodes so that other people see it. So definitely comment and share away. Bring other people into the fold. People who love music, like music, want something to listen to casually. Bring them in. We can expand this family more. So, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
And I will see you in 2010.
Yes, sir.